Hey, everybody. Welcome to FBC Missions So That podcast. We're so glad that you could join us today. You've remembered that we did the Perspectives course here in the spring, and we're asking some students to share their responses and kind of their experience. So today we have in the studio with us Kris Campbell. He's an excellent guy. I hope that you enjoy. Hi, and welcome to Season 4 of FBC Missions So That podcast. This is an encouraging place to hear how God is working in and around us. We know that He blesses His people so that they can bless the world around them. Why is God working in our life, church, and community? It's so that through us, the world will know that He is near. Hey, everybody. Welcome to FBC Missions So That podcast. This is Pastor Chad, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today. I have with me my co-host, Amanda. How you doing, Amanda?
Good as always.
Good as always.
I need different adjectives every time you ask me that.
We need to just have a list of funny responses so you can just change things up on occasion.
Okay.
Just for mess with people. It'd be fun.
Or mess with you.
You always can do that.
Okay, great.
It's good times. So we have in our studio with us today, Kris Campbell. How you doing, Kris? Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. I'm honored to be here.
Those are good adjectives. Those are good describing words. Thank you. Good
describing words. We are devolving into a very simple form of English speak. So we can. Okay. Anyway, lots of fun things to talk about. We're so glad that you joined us today, Kris. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you over the last 18 months as I've been here at FBC. You've been a person that I've had many conversations with and enjoyed several meals with, and looking forward to in a few weeks going to another country with you as well. So exciting to have you here. But hey, for those of our listeners that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, Kris. Tell us about your family and maybe a little bit of your history, how you came here to FBC.
Okay, sure. Well, we've been here 13 years. I got here because we had a grandchild in Texas, and that kind of started making us think, well, maybe we should move here. We lived in Colorado. We're natives of Texas. I was raised in the Houston area. My wife was raised here in San Antonio. And so we had kind of always thought, eventually we would like to move back to Texas and settle
back
down
to
here.
the holy land of the United States,
the great state of
the
Texas.
great state of Texas.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get that out of your mind.
Land flowing with milk and honey.
Right. So that kind of prompted our thinking, and then my mom became very ill. She lived in the Houston area, and so they kind of accelerated our plans. We started looking for a place, found a place, and moved my mom and stepfather over to live with us, and so that's kind of how we got here. And my sister-in-law is a member of First Baptist Boerne, and she says, well, you just got to come here and try it out. And we came, and we've never looked for any other church.
Never looked back.
Never looked anywhere else. No, we just love it here.
So how long have you been here at FBC?
Well, since September of 2011. So that's coming up, 13 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's exciting. There's lots to your story. You retired. What was your profession before you retired?
Oh, right. Well, I was a software engineer for most of my career, and then my background is finance, so I kind of segued into financial consulting and did some work outside of the IT industry. But that's kind of been the heart of my career, was the IT side of things.
Mm-hmm. That's been a great career. There's a lot of development in that role. Still growing, still important.
Oh my! It's so vastly different from what it was when I was doing things. Things that I thought were like way out there on the edge of technology, or kind of like happenstance.
They're like normal, normal everyday.
Just normal everyday things.
That's fun. Do you still have your family here in Boerne?
Yes, Betty's family all lives here. We have a son that lives in Round Rock, and wife and 2 grandchildren that live there, and their ages 12 and 14, so they're growing up quickly.
Yeah, wow, it's like my girls. They're almost that same place. It's just
the
wild.
Same age range.
Yeah. You were talking about technology. I always wonder what technology is going to look like when my kids have kids. Like, Amanda, do you remember your first cell phone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big day.
Yeah, I bet it was. What kind of cell phone was it? Was it a smartphone?
No.
No. I
It
mean,
had
I
Snake
don't-
on it. And
It had a snake on it?
Yeah, Snake. The game Snake on your brick
Oh,
Nokia
the game.
phone.
I was thinking, I can't even think like a Cobra. I can't remember. Is it a model, like a Motorola model or something?
Nokia brick phone.
Nokia brick phone. Okay, yeah.
A phone brand that's
No
gone to the
longer.
dust pile.
Yeah, along with the Motorola. You remember the flip phones, the razors?
The razors.
The razors. That
I
was
never
like everything
was that
for a
cool
while.
to get a razor.
cool
but
razor.
Yeah.
I know. It
Not
is.
just for shaving.
That's right.
So funny.
It slipped right in your pocket. Those are great.
Well, so you've been here at FBC for almost, you said 13, 14 years now. Since I've been here, we've had conversations about evangelism. We've had some conversations about missions. Have you had other interaction with kind of missions in your ministry history or in your faith history?
Yes. When I was 19, I had the great opportunity to meet a missionary from the Philippines who had just moved back to the States, and I had the opportunity to attend there. It was a small church in my hometown, and his name is Harold, and Harold and his family were just tremendous. They're like spiritual parents to me, and it was just an amazing experience to be grounded in the Word of God. He was just an amazing Bible teacher, and just the kind of the one-on-one kind of experience in a small church gathering that availed itself. It was just an amazing time to be discipled deeply in the Word of God. And I thought, I was around 21 at the time, I thought I was being called to be a missionary.
Really?
And I started praying about it, and I prayed, and I spent it was actually months. It was like 5 to 6 months of earnest prayer almost every day for long periods of praying. And finally, the Lord revealed to me that, no, that's not what he wants me to do. But I've always had a heart for missions. And so when the Iron Curtain fell in Russia, I had the opportunity to go there. And this is when Betty and I lived in Houston. We were members of First Baptist Church Houston, and we took a fairly large group of about 20 people there, and we went to the city of Nizhny Novgorod. It's a large metropolitan area in the interior of Russia, and we took with us 5,000 Bibles, and we literally had to keep them under lock and key in the basement of the church because there was such an incredible thirst for having a copy of the Bible. I mean, everywhere we went with Bibles, people would just do everything they possibly could to get their hands on a Bible. I mean, they weren't trying to steal them, but when we would, like, at the end of a session, we would ask people, to come up to get a Bible, and people would literally just rush out of their chairs to come forward to get a Bible. And it was just a tremendous experience.
That sounds like it. Crazy, just to skip a little bit, like what's coming into Moldova. We go there in a few weeks.
Right.
That same thing happened there, early 90s, 1990, 91, as the Iron Curtain fell, as communism kind of fell apart, that whole region. Then there was this huge hunger and thirst for the gospel, and all these missions agencies and trips were spent and sent to go and really provide access for the first time, at least in 50 to 70 years, for the gospel in those places, and it was a wide open door. So it's cool. You got to see that with your own eyes. It's
And ever since that experience, I've just had a heart for the Russian people, and so I'm really excited to go to Moldova. I'm really excited to go there and just reconnect with those people.
Yeah, I bet you so. That's going to be exciting. Well, that's also a very interesting trip. Sometimes you interview some folks and they talk about smuggling Bibles, but there was no smuggling. It was a wide open door, and in fact, you're trying to keep people from just taking them all the first day. You could have given away all your Bibles, and what a thing! What an incredible thing! Well, so you've had this interest in missions, and so you've retired. You're in the hill country. A lot of people retire to the hill country. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning that lives in the valley, and he's like, yeah, you're up there with all those people from the valley that have left their jobs and now are just, seeking out a place where they can enjoy Central Texas hill country and the wine country and the golfing and the whatever else you want to do, depending on where you live. And so you're here. And why would you take a class like Perspectives? What made you interested in signing up for that thing?
Well, when we had the introduction last fall, I didn't really know what we were getting into. We were just invited to come hear about this opportunity called Perspectives. But I have to tell you, just it's kind of an emotional thing, but when Stephen Hawthorne came and just seeing the passion and the love that man has for for the lost, it was just it really gripped my heart.
Yeah, Steve was our lesson 2 instructor, but he's the guy, one of the co-authors of the course itself. And so his depth of insight into the course is obviously unlike anything, but when he talks, he's a little bit like a harebrained professor, like his hair sticks up in different directions and it looks a little funny. If he listens to this, he's going to laugh at me. I've had him on the podcast, by the way. If you're interested, you could go back. We did an interview with him last summer, and then we interviewed him again when he was here this spring. Both his podcasts are excellent. You can hear what Kris is talking about on the podcast itself. But man, his knowledge of Scripture is unlike really anyone I've ever met, both intimately knowing the Greek, the Hebrew, the background, the tenses, and so when he starts talking about specific verses and what they mean and how it connects to us, it's unlike anything. And then how it connects to him, he tears up over and over and over again as he walks through this presentation that's called The Story of God's Glory. The whole presentation is around how Scripture is telling one story about God's interaction with people for the purpose of his own glory. So he's created us to be worshipers. Every one of us, whether you worship God or not, you're created for that purpose. And so when you start kind of nailing and hold down the statement that is missions happens because worship doesn't, is kind of the core of that whole session. And so, man, I'm so glad to hear and think about how that impacted you. So you came to hear about the course, and then you decided to take the course.
Right. So Betty was with me, and so we both considered taking the course, and she's deeply involved in BSF. She says, there's no way I can do both. And I said, I know. You're going to have to pick one or the other. And so she's decided not to take it. I think she's going to maybe take it next year. But I decided to go forward. I wanted to do it, and we knew it was going to be a time commitment, and it is, and it's more than was advertised.
I try to be really bold about that,
you were realistic. But it is a time commitment, but it's all the time is well worth it. I mean, it's just rich. The thing that just amazed me after a couple of weeks into the class, I'm sitting here reading the book, and I'm thinking, my goodness, because every article there's a little profile about the author, and I wanted to read about who these people are and what their background is, and they're every one of them were like on the field in missions, and now are either teaching in university settings or doing some other kind of work. And I'm thinking, my goodness, this book is a treasure of wisdom of people who have been on the field and lived this life, and they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it really confronts you with so much experience that it's overwhelming. I mentioned this in one of the earlier podcasts that there's 15 different instructors, so you get such a wide variety of different people sharing their experience and understanding.
Oh, and that was simply amazing. Just each speaker week after week was like, how can it get any better? I mean, it's just the people who came and spoke they weren't just like people that just happened to be in Boerne, next week. These were people, one, as you know, flew in from Peru just to do this and some other teaching assignments, and I guess visit family too. But I just was so impressed that he would come to the States to do that.
Yeah. So Amanda, you haven't had a chance to take the class, and obviously you're
I
getting
haven't.
you're
I'm
getting
sitting
pushed.
here
You're
and I'm
pushed
getting
so hard.
very encouraged, which is great. I've kind of been where Betty is like, I don't know if I can. I don't know what this looks like. But the more and more we talk about it, I'm like, I need this. This seems really great. And
You would love it. You would love it.
I think I would. So what are some takeaways that you have received from this?
Well, first, after a couple of weeks into it, I learned about this Lausanne conference back in the 70s. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I've never heard of this Lausanne conference. I've been around Christian circles. I was a Christian back in the 70s. Why have I not heard about and all the people who were well known in the world of missions attended that conference. But this conference was kind of a baseline, right, for a lot of developments, including perspectives, right? I mean, Ralph Winter came out of that, or was an instrumental part of it.
Yeah. So just to clarify a couple things, like one is that Perspectives was a result of intervarsity conferences that happen every 3 years in the U.S. called Urbana. Urbana is a college student conference that does once every 3 years. They bring in college students from all over the country for missions. So it's been happening since the 1930s, I believe. It was first called InterVarsity, and then it became the Urbana Conference. In 1956, we were talking about this a little while ago, there was an event where 5 missionaries died in Ecuador on the beach, a beach of one of the rivers connected to the Amazon. And that event, Nate Saint, Roger Yadorian, Jim Elliott, they died there trying to take the gospel to an unreached people group that killed them on that beach. And Time magazine covered that event. And as a result, that event became one of the biggest moments in mission history because the whole world learned that there were places and peoples like the tribes and that there were missionaries trying to go to them. Mm-hmm. So for the missions world, for the Christian world, there was this awareness, like we didn't even know this still existed. And they had the following Urbana conferences. It really culminated in 1970 when there was this conference that they talked about the need to send mission workers to the unreached. And that was something that Ralph Winter really coined. And as a result, 20,000 people at that conference volunteered to be missionaries. And Ralph Winter, the leader, said, we can't send them unequipped. They can't all go to seminary. What are we going to do? So they developed this course. The Perspectives course came out of that need. He said, if we could host a course like this, that's basically a college intro to missions course that we could put in churches across the country, then many people could get access to this, even if they can't go to seminary and get these tools. So that's kind of the beginning of it. But what you're talking about is the Edinburgh conference. So it was the beginning of the Lausanne movement. And it was really a collection of all these different missions organizations saying there's needs. What are you learning? How can we learn from each other? And what is the task? So Billy Graham, evangelist, was involved. Campus Crusade for Christ with Bill Bright, the IMB, all of the big organizations were represented. YWAM, Lauren Cunningham, they're all there, and they're all talking about what's going on. And that's where Ralph Winter stood up and said, listen, we're doing this the wrong way. Instead of going just to the nations, we need to look for the peoples, the people groups, the individual people groups. And it's really where they introduced the concept of unreached people groups to the world of missions. And that set fire for really the last 50 years of missions movement. So there's a lot of technical pieces. And yeah, in Perspectives, you get introduced to some of these things. So it has moved since then substantially. So. Well,
and what you just said is really my main takeaway from the class is it really has helped to reshape or refocus my attention on the unreached. Because, when we look at our country, we see a lot of people amongst us who need Christ, but they have had, Americans have had many, many opportunities to hear about Jesus. When you start hearing that there are literally cultures that do not even know who Jesus is, it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. We mentioned it, and this will come up as we interview prospective students. This is going to be a key takeaway. It's one of the main objectives of the class is to help people become aware of the reality that there are people who will be born, live their whole life, and die never hearing the name of Jesus from any person they know, anyone that's a friend. They won't drive past a church. They won't have a Bible sitting on their shelf that they haven't opened. They have no access, zero access. And that's really that's how we reserve the word unreached for that definition. So some people confuse unreached with unchurched. So when you talk to somebody in the U.S., they might say, "Oh, my neighbor's unreached." Well, they really mean that they haven't had the gospel. They're not Christians. They're unchurched. They haven't had access to the gospel. But they drive past it. Again, they have many access points every day, in and out, and many different cultural engagement opportunities, everything. But there are those places. Roughly a third of the world live in these places that are considered unreached. There's no access to the gospel of Jesus in their entire place and their entire life. And so the task of the church, when Jesus says, "Go make disciples of all nations," we have this very clear Great Commission. The Lord commissioned his disciples in that moment to take the gospel to all those places. And here we are 2,000 years later, and that Great Commission has not been accomplished. And so that's one of the task remaining kind of conversation. It's a tension that you walk out of the course saying, what's it going to take to see the mission accomplished, to see the Great Commission accomplished? And can it happen in our day? Can it happen within our responsibility, within the generation that we live in? And it's an incredible thing. So you mentioned like a Steve Hawthorne, this has been his life's work, is trying to help bring awareness to the need, to advocate for those people that don't have anyone advocating for them. And so it's just an excellent thing that you bring up. What are some other things that stand out to you when you think about perspectives?
Well, it was a great experience to meet other people. We had several churches represented, and so I got to know Eric, who is part of a church plant near my home.
Yeah, they're in Bergheim. Mm-hmm. Bergheim Christian Fellowship. Yeah, Eric Cates, the pastor there.
Yeah. I think Curry Creek
helped planted them.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was really. It was just good to meet other people outside of First Baptist Boerne, and I hope to, keep up with Eric and see what they're doing. Sounds like things are going well. But the other thing was I really enjoyed just hearing each mission focus that we had each week. After break, we would have a mission focus time, and Chad brought in several different agencies, and
we call it a local ministry spotlight, where we try to just bring in somebody that's engaging with the needs in our region and our area, something that people could hands-on take away and go do. So we had probably 13 or 14 different ministry highlights.
Yeah, so when Hussam and Tina came and spoke, the Syrian missionary, they're living in Germany now, I think.
Yeah.
So that was an awesome opportunity to get to meet him and his wife, and also in the process, I met Mark Pfeiffer at the luncheon, and Mark and Susan Pfeiffer are doing have an amazing ministry here in San Antonio, reaching the unreached that God has brought to our doorstep.
Yeah. So that's one of the other takeaways, is that you don't have to go to the other side of the world to sometimes find unreached people groups. Sometimes they live right in our backyard. So like the Afghani families that have come to the U.S. since the crisis in Afghanistan, there's over 700 Afghani families that live in San Antonio, and Mark and Susan Pfeiffer run Eat, Pray, Teach. Reach, Teach, Love. That's what it's called. Reach, Teach, Love. So, yeah. And they provide resources for churches to engage with the Muslim population in San Antonio, how to engage them with the gospel, how to show kindness and love. And so they're an excellent organization that we did partner with. And so I'm so glad that you've tied in with them as well. We should have them on the podcast sometime. They're crazy and exciting to talk to.
They're well organized. I did the mission day last Friday.
Last Friday?
Yeah. So we actually went to the market. We went to different...
This is right off Wurzbach, right?
Wurzbach. We went to a food supply store that's run by an Afghani family. We ate at a Turkish restaurant and went to a mosque
Really?
and we were able to sit in the back, and just observe. But they allow you to do that.
Did you talk to some of the people, or what do you do while you're there as you're in those places?
When we got to the mosque, we met with their outreach director, Mike. I call him Mike the Muslim. He's actually a Caucasian.
He's American,
guy,
yeah.
American guy, Aggie, who grew up, and anyway, converted to Islam. But so he kind of walked through the pillars of their faith and talked about how they do the prayers and went through the prayer and just kind of prepared us for the prayer time. And that was an interesting experience. And then
I'm sure it is.
We didn't get to meet the imam, but we met the president of the San Antonio Islam Association.
Okay.
He was there. And Mark knows him fairly well.
Yeah.
So we got to meet him.
So why would you do all of that? What was the point of visiting a mosque?
Well, for me, and apparently Mark and Susan do this on a regular basis. They take groups to do this for just help to immerse people into the culture. But for me, it was to learn more about these people who, and they're in the thousands that live here.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't go to Afghanistan, but maybe the Lord can introduce me to someone who's an Afghani that will come to Christ.
Well, after your day of learning this cultural immersion right here in San Antonio, do you feel more equipped? Do you feel like you would be able to have a relationship or a friendship with an Afghani person?
I would probably take the next step now, but we're getting ready for the trip. When I get back from the trip, I do want to get back in touch with Mark and Susan, and also maybe Mark Gruber.
Matt Gruber.
Gruber. So I did talk to Matt a little bit, and that might be another avenue.
That sounds incredible. This is something that our listeners should know. Like, there really are hundreds of opportunities in our own city right here. I mean, you've got Boerne, San Antonio, kind of larger area. You could even go towards Kerrville. There are so many opportunities to engage internationals within any university will have international students. So anything Schreiner, UTSA, any of the other colleges around San Antonio. There's the refugee communities, which are the ones that have been brought in and looking for places to stay. The government has given them permission and even helped them to get settled into some areas. They struggle to understand just how to navigate American culture and society. And so there's always an opportunity to volunteer, to serve, to just assist. One of our families here at the church partners with one of those families, an Afghani family, and just helps them get their kids inscribed in the schools and how to work through medical systems and getting the medicines they need. It's so difficult when you don't know what to do to even know where to start.
Just loving on them, basic needs of life.
Just loving. Most people are pretty terrified of Muslims, especially when you talk about Middle Eastern Muslims. They get real nervous.
I'm kind of one of them. I mean, it's like, I know it's definitely outside of my comfort zone, and there's a little consternation around that, but I just feel the Lord is pressing me in this direction.
Well, let's get back to perspectives then. Like, when you look back on it, how has it? Do you think that it was, obviously you said it was really worthwhile to you? Do you find this as a significant point in your faith journey?
It does, because for the past 2 years, I've been reflecting on a lot of these thoughts about what the Lord wants me to do. I just turned 73, so I'm climbing up the ladder. But whatever active years I have left, I really want to make them meaningful and to make them impactful as much, as the Lord would have me to be.
If someone was considering perspectives, would you tell them this is definitely something they should check it out?
Absolutely, just do it. It's an amazing experience. It's 15 weeks of definitely heads down, a lot of reading, a lot of it's one thing when you start reading this book, it's there are words on a page, but when you get into a paragraph, it's like you pause and you think and you reflect and you start to, if a Bible verse is quoted, you go find that Bible verse in the Bible, and then all of a sudden you're reading more around that one Bible verse, and all of a sudden the Lord is taking you down I wouldn't say a rabbit hole, but a path of even greater understanding. And so it really can consume a lot of time, but it's every second is it's like an investment. It's not time wasted, that's for sure.
As I was walking in, you guys were chit-chatting about kind of some church planting models.
Yeah, I asked him what, now that you've taken the course, like we've kind of asked, like, what does that mean for you? I think that's kind of what you ask yourself. Yeah. You're like, okay, now that I'm here, now that I know this, what does that mean?
Well, this course has really been, it's synthesized a lot of what I have been thinking about for the past 2 years. How can I, I'm not going to talk about other people, but how can I help to bring people to Christ, and how can I teach them quickly to do the same thing? Not just get plugged into a church and just go sit in a pew, but how could we structure something so that the people that are brought to Christ are quickly discipled to go bring others to Christ? And then those people would quickly go bring others to Christ. And very quickly, if it happens that way, it could multiply exponentially. Mm-hmm. And that's nothing new, but what is new is I don't see this being done. And maybe it is. Maybe it's just that I don't know more about what people are doing in the world, but you said you saw the antennas coming up. You were like, okay, I sense this, I see this. Where else do I see this? How can I find this, or what does it look like? I just really felt like this was an answer to prayer. This course was an answer to prayer for me personally. Yeah, I've enjoyed the opportunity to have, again, several conversations with you, Kris, over the last 4 months, and it's Kris is one of these guys that's kind of quiet, and he's kind of in the background, and he's not going to be trying to jump up and take over anything, but like he's thinking through it deeply. So he comes in a couple days later, or even next week, hey, I was thinking about this, and we need to be doing this. He's ready to let's get moving. This is important. We've got to, and I love your passion for it. I love that God is shaping your heart. And I love that he's giving you this passion for discipling people to multiply. Like one of you're right on the edge, Kris, of like some things that are hard for the American church to understand and process. And it goes to these very basic Jesus' teachings that say, like, the command to go make disciples. We hear that and we think, I'm a part of a church, I'm being discipled, and that's where we think we've accomplished that goal. But then the question to say, well, what disciples are you making, and how are they making disciples? Or you think about 2 Timothy 2:2, where it says, what you've heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, pass on to faithful men who will in turn teach others. And you start to count, like Paul teaching the person who heard him say this, that they pass on to faithful men. There's like 4 generations of discipling just in that one verse. And we normally stop at 2, right? We have a leader, the leader disciples his people, and then if we're blessed, they gather more people to be discipled by the same leader. And that might, if you have a really exceptional leader, you might have a huge group of people being discipled by one leader, but they don't see the task of discipling others outside of that leader's influence as their own. And so we neglect the ownership of the gospel task really almost wholeheartedly as American believers. We think the church has that task. Your pastors have that task. But one of the things that Perspectives wants to do is help you feel the weight that this ownership of the gospel task, the task to take the gospel to new believers, to non-believers, to those who are close to you and far from God, the kind of language we'd use along the way, to teach them not just to go to a church, but to be the church wherever they are, right? You can be the church in your home. You can be the church in a Starbucks. You can invite the people to come and hear and know and learn all that Jesus has commanded them. Doesn't just happen in the walls of a legacy church that is beautifully formed to encourage faith, to grow families, to encourage communities to engage.
But there are many people in our communities that will never walk into our church, and the gospel is for them as well. And so this idea, Kris, I love that you feel the weight of it. As you've told me, I know you're even discipling young men. God has given you opportunities to kind of practice this as well, and you're looking for more. And I'm just so excited to see what God's going to do. I pray that he'll give you many, many more active years, Kris, that you can live out what these things are that he's teaching you in your later age. You know, that you kind of wish that you had this when you were 20, right? Like, what kind of shape would that make? But for
God
whatever
can
reason,
use any time.
yeah, for whatever reason, God waited until now, and he's like, okay, but now you have it, right? What is it? To him who knows what is right and does not do it, like that's sin. Like now you know, and so now the work is to be faithful with what you know, and I'm like so I can't talk. Blah, blah, blah. I'm so excited to walk alongside you, Kris, as you discover more what that all means.
Oh, thank you.
We have a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you would encourage our listeners with? Anything you would want to say?
Can't think of anything at the moment. I guess if you're on the fence, I would just say carve out the time to do it. And if my wife is listening, maybe she'll get
We'll send it to her.
Well, she'll definitely hear this.
So, no, I do want to say one thing. So with this idea of discipleship and what I call replication, which is kind of my term, but one of the things that we learn in perspectives is that it's very important to be strategic. There are many good things to do, but there are really important things that need to be done, and that those are around the unreached people groups. And so my hope and prayer is that from this, not only just me, but we had 62 people in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully these people will also have, we'll get connected with some of these ministries in town that are reaching the refugees in our city. And wouldn't it be wonderful if the Lord used these people to bring these internationals to Christ? And what if those internationals started a firestorm in their home country?
Mm.
I mean, like some of the stories we read about in Perspectives
Sure.
in India, where this one missionary said, "Well, I'm a millionaire," and somebody said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, we just had our 1 millionth convert."
It's unbelievable.
1 millionth convert. And it happened in a matter of 2 years or something. It was an amazing flow of the Spirit of God in that people group.
Yeah, there's some incredible stories that you learned about as you go through the later part of Perspectives, where God has done really the same things that we see in the book of Acts. It's really not new. It feels new because it's so different than our experience, but it's where God will open the door to a culture, and many people in the culture respond quickly and faithfully, and it's been hard for the world to understand. Even reading about them feels so crazy because the numbers seem so outside of our experience.
Yeah, and then people who are listening to this, I didn't know this was going on, and I'm guessing that most people don't really know that these things are happening around us in the world right now. And I know the Lord's not waiting for me to do His work. His work will be done regardless. But wouldn't it be neat if maybe some people from Perspectives who have been through this course, not just here, but in San Antonio? There was one in San Antonio as well. Sure. So there's probably another 100 people that have been trained in Perspectives. So what if the Lord used those people to reach some of these international people that would turn things upside down in their home country? That's my prayer, that because when you look at, it's pretty bleak when you look at countries like Afghanistan, I think the same thing about Iran, but now we're hearing that in Iran it's like the fastest growing Christian community in the world.
Yeah.
Now, the numbers are probably small, so the growth rate is a little bit of an anomaly, I guess, but literally thousands of people are coming to Christ from what.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, the stories that you hear about, and Iran is at the top of that list, but there are other countries where there's explosive movements of the gospel happening over the last several years. And so it's exciting. I've said this many times in my 18 months at FBC, but this time in world history is where there's more people come into faith than ever before. And it's an incredible time. We don't see it all the time, and definitely not in our culture and context. It feels like many people have this idea that we're losing ground, because the United States is becoming less and less religious, less Christian looking on the, but that's not the case in many parts of the world where the Lord is working in ways that have never been done before. We're kind of coming to the end here. Kris, I really appreciate you coming and spending a few minutes with us.
Thank you.
I know that you're also going to be involved in helping us do gospel conversations here and not only just continue to grow in your own ability to share their faith, but to teach others as well. And I can't wait to have you involved in that. Thank you for being willing to do that. Amanda, what have we missed? What else?
I think it's fantastic. I really enjoy hearing what Kris has to say, and it's fun for me to interview people who have done perspectives and see the fire that they have, and like this, I know the Lord has this plan for his people, and I want to be a part, because like you said, he's not waiting for me, but I want to jump on that train, and I love seeing that in you. And so it's like, it's even trickling over to some, second degree, where it's like, yeah, that's a fire that I would love, and I have, but I don't know what to do with that. A perspective course could kind of guide in that direction. So I'm thankful that you shared, and I'm thankful that you were here talking with us.
Well, we are in the very early stages of planning, but we do anticipate having a spring 2025 perspectives course in Boerne. Just today, I think one of the other churches that had some students here is going to host the class. I think Mission City is going to play host to one of the class. We're going to host a daytime class, like a 9 to noon here at FBC in the spring, so we can try to engage those people that can't get out in the evenings. One more evening, like maybe church staffs or ministry staffs or parents of young children, or some elderly that don't want to drive out in the dark, all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully we'll have a couple options for those of you who are interested in perspectives. And I want to tell you one more thing. You might think that I've just brought my best 2 students that you guys can hear.
Did you hear that, Kris?
Kris is definitely one of my best students, and we interviewed Heather Austin as well, and she is fantastic. But I can tell you, we have about 28 students that finished certificate. I could bring every one of them in here, and they're going to say very similar things, like the way that God is using this course to shape our hearts is unbelievable. And so you'll hear a few more. We're going to definitely interview some more folks as we get closer. But Kris, thank you so much. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
I want to remind the listeners, like, why we do this. Like, why does God bless us? Why does he make his face shine on us? It's so that through us, he can make himself known to the world around us. Make sure that you're blessing those around you. We love you. Have a wonderful day, and God bless. We are so thankful that you joined our podcast today. We would love to hear any feedback you may have for us. Remember, Psalm 67 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth and your salvation among all nations." Don't forget why the Lord blesses us. It's so that we can be a blessing to those around us. Until next time, God bless.